Here we go. Boston has entered the chat. Banner 18 is ours. Woo! Travis Thomas here with Cullen Kapoor. Hey, championship edition of Boston has entered the chat. It feels so good to say that, my friend.
Yeah, Travis, look, it doesn't get any better than what we just saw last night. It's time to crown a champion. We are ready. I'm ready. I'm dialed in. Let's do this. What a night for Boston sports.
Yes, may the show say amen. Get in here. Call us, 617-790-0928. You can also email us at thechat@nesson.com. Send us your tweets. You know we have multiple tweets to show on this very program because we are celebrating the championship. So let's start here. Let's start with Game 5 because, Cullen, coming into this game, I think all of us felt some of the pressure. It wasn't a situation where we're talking about a seventh game here in Boston, but everyone recognized you're at home. It's a closeout game. You're coming off a beatdown, embarrassing loss to the Mavericks in their building. It just felt like, and remember, yesterday was 6/17, 6/17, the anniversary of the Celtics winning the last title. So there was a lot of things going into it, karma-wise. I think most of us felt like this should be a closeout celebration game that it ended up being. But there was some nerves, Colin, of, hey, if this team loses and it goes back to Dallas, oh my goodness, are we facing a Game 7? So I feel like a need to exhale that this is finally over. Because coming into this, I was a little sketch. I was a little sus, Cullen.
Yeah, Travis, look, this was a sigh of relief on multiple different scales. You mentioned on the micro scale, the game-by-game scale, but you also look at the entire narrative surrounding this Celtics season and this Celtics core with the Jays. We'll get into that a little bit later, obviously. Yeah. But when we talk about what happened and why this win specifically was so important for the nature of the series is what you just said, that if they lose, then the worm of doubt starts to creep in a little bit more. Then you're like, what's been going wrong? Is it Porzingis not being 100%? Is it the machinations in terms of the systems not working? Or is Dallas adjusting? All of these things. But it doesn't matter now. That is all completely dissolved into thin air because, like we've been saying for months, like we've been saying throughout this entire playoff run, this team quelled the doubts and they got the job done. They did that in a myriad of different ways, but it starts and ends with Jason Tatum in this Game 5. Yep. Travis, the way that he was able to put the team on his back, puts a 30-burger on the board, does what, even with the surrounding narratives of all the other guys, and for good reason, Jaylen Brown does get MVP. Drew Holiday was fantastic this series. Yes. So was Derek White. But at the end of the day, when it mattered the most, those guys did their jobs and did their roles, but it was Tatum who put the team on his back. Like I said, I think that is why it was so special seeing that final shot with him, lifting the trophy and the emotions that he had. That was the Celtics, and that's because it has been Tatum for years now, and that's why it was so impactful to see. And overall, getting it done at home on the parquet means so much more. You can talk about not getting it done in Game 4. It ended up working out here in Game 5 for us in Boston, right?
That's right.
So things happen for a reason, and that's why this was so impactful for the entire years and years of history that came into this moment. This Celtics team got the job done, and they sealed the deal on their home court.
Yeah, Tatum in Game 5, as you said, 31 points, 11 assists in that game, 8 boards, just a couple boards shy of a triple-double. But look, I'm looking at the box score now for the Mavericks. Outside of Luka's 28, I mean, who the hell did anything? He also had 12 boards in the game. But again, yet another game here, Cullen, where Kyrie is MIA, missing in action in Boston. And, he took the high road after the game, said all the right things. We'll get to that. But in the end, you stink in Boston, bro. It just is what it is. In Dallas, he looks like a completely different player. He can act like it doesn't affect him. It clearly does, Cullen. The guy has the yips mentally when he's here in Boston. And he chipped in 15. Outside of that, no one gave the Mavericks anything in Game 5. And listen, this team we've watched all season live and die by the three-pointer. We get it.
Right.
Offensively, one of the more efficient teams maybe the game has ever seen. But I still will look back on this championship run, and we should talk about the run period to get here
Absolutely.
for this team. But I think the calling card was defense. It just wasn't as quite as aggressive or prioritized as maybe when Ime was the coach. But this team still played very solid, tight team defense. And I actually think that's why Banner 18 is in Boston right now. Defense.
And you just look at the score of this game 5 and of the rest of the games in the series, 88 points allowed. It's not a 130 to a 125 type game. That's just because it's not that team.
That's right.
You know, that we've seen the Celtics win games in boat races. We've seen them win, high flying games where it is that 130 to 125. They can do that. But when you're playing a Mavs team, and Travis, we talked about this before the series started, when you're playing a Mavs team that when they have the two guys in Kyrie and Luka, the auxiliary pieces the Celtics can handle, if it becomes a defensive standoff where if it's Luka not getting his and Kyrie not getting his, that essentially is the game.
Yeah.
Then play that way and win the game that way, right? And the way the Mavs were able to play defensively, they gave the Celtics some trouble in this one. But at that point, when the Celtics had a hair of a scoring rut, maybe in the middle of the third quarter, they did get themselves out of it pretty quickly, but by that point they were already up by 20 points. It didn't matter. So that's why the way that the Celtics went about this game, which was punch them in the nose and don't look back. You can win a basketball game even with a little bit of a shakeup there in the third. So overall defensively, we said, and Joe Mazzulla said before the series, that we're not trying to force Luka and Kyrie to get 0 points because it's just not going to happen. But on the Kyrie side, a couple of 12s and a 15, that's not going to get the job done for you. And that's why the Celtics got it done so easily. And we're going to talk about the path to get here and everything like that. I'm not going to say it was an easy path right now, but what I will say is that this team is just so damn good. And that's why it might have looked easy. And that's why and the defense plays a huge part of that. And, we talk about Drew Holiday all the time. Jaylen Brown becoming, in this finals run, such a really, really undervalued and underappreciated part of the team defensively. All of that kind of comes together in this series, and it turns into a game here in game 5 where they allow 88 points, and you're like, this is just par for the course. This is just something that they keep doing because this is something they can do, and that's why they won, to your point.
Well, listen, you mentioned Jaylen Brown's defense. I think that was a huge piece of why he was NBA Finals MVP, although admittingly, I was shocked. I thought Tatum, just being a couple rebounds off of messing around and getting a triple-double would be enough for him to sort of steal the award late, so to speak, and win it because, he and Jaylen Brown were neck and neck coming into this game for all intents and purposes. And then, sure enough, Tatum has a breakout game. Looks like he's the man. I'm thinking, okay, he's going to be Finals MVP, no problem. And they announced Jaylen Brown's name. And although I was shocked, I was pleasantly surprised because, quite frankly, Cullen, I thought he did deserve the MVP because he was more consistent, really, not just in the finals. I know it's a finals award, but in general, all postseason long. That's why we saw Jaylen Brown get the Eastern Conference Finals MVP as well, and everyone was sort of shocked there and surprised there. And then here we go again in the finals. He gets the award. Yes, it's deserving. Yes, we can all acknowledge that because of what he did offensively and defensively and as a leader all series long. But damn, it was like a shock. Like, okay, here we go. I guess it is Jaylen Brown's team, huh?
I think I agree with you and disagree with you in a couple of things here. Overall, I thought as the series went along, it was Brown's to lose. You mentioned the consistency, the 30 points in game 3, and the way that he was able to step up when Tatum was, I'm not going to say struggling, but maybe at the very least wasn't producing the way we might have expected him to. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And that's nothing against Tatum, but it's in a team that is the Jays, Brown was stepping up in the bigger moments in this final series. But then we get to game 5 and you're watching Jason Tatum and you're watching him just absolutely eviscerate the Dallas Mavericks. And I'm thinking, like, I think the NBA and whoever is making these decisions is going to give this one to Tatum just because, like we've talked about, and I think, Travis, we had this exact conversation, that if those stats are comparable, it might go to Tatum because it's Jason Tatum and
That's
because
right.
it's his team and all of these things. So I think, statistically speaking, Brown is deserving of the MVP award. I don't think it's a question mark. I don't think it's not worth controversy because obviously the Celtics won, so who cares, right? Like at
Right.
the end of the day, the overall prime directive was succeeded, but it's worth talking about in terms of who actually produced the most in these final series.
Yes.
Brown, in terms of the stats, I think he got there, and I think it also shows such a progression for Jaylen Brown and also for the conversation around Jaylen Brown. I remember, when that Supermax was signed, when you saw the money being involved, and the negative point of view on that was like, what's it going to do to the locker room? Is it going to fracture the relationship? Is it going to be Brown versus Tatum going forward? Can the guy dribble with his left hand? Whatever it is.
Right.
And all of these things are now, just like I said, with some other things, they just kind of dissolve because the Celtics got the job done. And that's what makes this so special. So overall, with the finals MVP, like I said, and I think we talked about this in bold predictions, that Brown was my finals MVP pick, and it ended up coming to fruition because you said it, Travis, the consistency game in and game out helped the Celtics along more than any other player.
Well, you know what they say, Cullen, they say winning cures all, right? And that's
absolutely.
And that's what happens here. But I will say, over time, I am interested to see this dynamic between these two play out, just like I have been from the beginning of time when they were just young pups trying to find their way. Now, I mean, they're both in their prime. They are both doing it on a really championship level. We've seen it. I want to see over time now because Tatum is about to get paid too. He's going to make more than Jaylen Brown. So all your money's going to be wrapped up in these two guys. And I just want to see over time is how it plays out. Is this kumbaya thing we have going now going to last? Is it sustainable? Or once Tatum gets a contract, let's say they have some hardships. Let's say they lose in an Eastern Conference Finals again. Or let's say they get back to a finals and lose again, which we have seen this team do. Maybe a Jokic or an ascending Anthony Edwards beats them. Whatever it is, I want to see over time how that relationship evolves or dissolves, quite frankly. That's what I'm tuned in to see is as all the money is tied up in these two players. Eventually, you're going to start. I know right now everyone's under contract, but I'm talking big picture. Right. Eventually, you're going to start losing some of these ancillary pieces who are so critical to this championship run. And oh, by the way, I mean, I want to see the same thing with Joe Mazzulla, Cullen, because he's going to lose assistance as this team continues to win. We see Charles Lee already now gone, taking the Hornets job. I think Sam Cassell's next. I just think as you win in any league as a head coach, your assistants become hot stuff and they get jobs elsewhere. Can you, as a coach, especially a young one in Joe Mazzulla, I know you have this ring now, but can you evolve your coaching game as well and be able to withstand some of those losses? I'm fascinated to see this between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, Joe Mazzulla, how he grows or doesn't. I want to see that over time because are we looking at a team that's just going to win this one ring and then we'll look back and say, man, they lost to Steph. They did get the one against the Mavs, but they should have got 3 or 4. Or is this a modern-day dynasty, which we'll talk about later, but I'm fascinated, Cullen, to sort of see all these things play out over the next 5 to 10 years.
And on the coaching side, Travis, this is just something you see. You mentioned across all leagues. Look at the NFL with the Belichick coaching tree, right? Sean McVay coaching tree, the Shanahan tree, all of these things. So it is really interesting. And I do wonder, now that you say that, how this is all going to play out. I think on the side of the Jays, from everything that we've seen about these two players, tells me that the maturity is there as, one player gets paid more than the other. One player gets more notoriety than the other. One day, what does the next player do the next day? They show up and show out, right? It's Tatum getting 31 after Brown gets 30, right? It's the same kind of thing. So overall, I don't anticipate there being an issue here. I am wearing rose-colored glasses right now because, last night we just watched the Celtics get that NBA Finals championship. But still, I will say, as of now, I don't think, maybe there's something worth worrying about if things go horribly awry next season or in 2 seasons from now. But as of now, and I think you would agree with me on this, Travis, that these two guys, they're win-first guys, and Drew Holiday's the same way. We talked about him last time we chatted, Travis. So I have to imagine that it's not going to get in the way of things. Another huge contract for Jason Tatum, which is on the way. They say money can create those problems, but they did with Brown this season. And yes, the Celtics were winning all the time, and they didn't face too much adversity in terms of extended losing stretches. And if that does happen, we'll have a conversation at that time. But as of now, I really don't see that being a problem with these two players because, one, they don't have that weight on their shoulders anymore, right? There isn't the weight of the world crushing them down, which is you still haven't finished the job. Now they finished the job, and now they can kind of focus on if there is that money, situation with Jason Tatum. If they do face a losing stretch down the line, they're still going to be able to fall back on this and say, this is how we succeeded then. We can kind of use that going forward. So I don't see it being an issue. The Mazzulla thing is really interesting because for a young head coach, that's where you have to start surrounding yourself with new minds and make the most of a situation when assistants start leaving. I'm really, really fascinated about that too.
Well, you have to think about this. They surrounded him. There's no question. I don't even think it's an argument. He has the best supporting coaching staff in the league. And so I just want to see how that plays out. Now, that's a big picture play, right, that we're going to watch unfold. In the short term, I mean, this guy deserves more credit than what he's getting. And to be honest with you, I've been so critical of Joe Mazzulla at every turn. I don't feel the need to owe the guy an apology or anything like that. But at the same time, Colin, he does deserve credit here. And I have to give it to him because look, the whole run for them, and you could talk about the injuries and all that, the whole postseason run, he deserves credit. But specifically, here's where he earned it with me. When they got beat down, in Game 4 in Dallas, everyone thought, uh-oh, here we go, right? And he kept that team centered. He kept them focused. He kept them hungry. And quite frankly, they came back home and they came out, and I thought the beginning of Game 5 was going to be the tell. If they came out high energy, ready to go, hair on fire, like the Mavericks looked at the beginning of Game 4, then I said, you know what, I'm going to give Joe Mazzulla credit. And that's what I'm doing because that is tough to do. I know you're up 3-0 in a series, but to get beat down and embarrassed, I mean, that's a historical loss for the Boston Celtics in a postseason game we're talking about.
Especially up 3-0 in a series.
Right? And now you come back home, more pressure is heaped on you to close it out at home, and his team responded. He had him ready to go. I think Joe Mazzulla deserves more credit than maybe he's getting right now.
I agree, Travis. And one thing, you mentioned that start for the Celtics. Who was it that got the first 3 buckets of this game? It was our guy. It was our X factor. It was Drew Holiday. That's something that we have mentioned a lot. And for Holiday, just to talk about him for a second, what an absolutely phenomenal NBA Finals performance. What he was able to do as the guy who's done it before was really, really impressive. And I think on the Mazzulla note, something interesting is that, yes, he came, he went up to the podium. He kept the team together after that loss, but it's also interesting he built this team to stay together after losses like that. It's something that, as the season went on, when the Celtics didn't have too many losses, there was still the Joe Mazzulla who's out there, one of the most intense people you'll ever see, and he drills that intensity into the team, and that's why if a loss like this happens, the team is built for that and is built to stay together, and that is all Mazzulla and the coaches in that staff. I think, when we talk about Mazzulla, what is not mentioned as much is the fact that he walked into a maelstrom and held the team together. There are obviously some flaws in last year's playoff run that have been talked about before, but look, he learned from those and he got it done here this year. It's not perfect. It never will be perfect, but when you're a coach like Joe Mazzulla, with the locker room that he instills, with the locker room that he controls, these are the kind of things that if you get beat down 30 points, whatever it is, in one game, you flush that in the next game. You turn to your guy that's done it before and been there before in Drew Holiday to get started on a positive note, get the first 6 points of a game, and don't look back from there. And I think that Joe Mazzulla, as a second-year head coach in the NBA, getting this ring is super impressive, and it's something that's really a testament to what he's done and just the way he operates as a head coach. It's really impressive.
I tell you who needed a ring. Old man Al Horford,
Oh, yeah.
and he got one, brother. Do you think now he rides off into the sunset? Because I'll be honest, as I look at old man Al, right, and at times it does look like he's laboring out there, but for the most part, I mean, in this system, just knock down an open three, play defense, crash the boards, give me those hustle points. He's able to provide that. I mean, if anything, hell, as the playoffs went on, once Porzingis got hurt, you asked for more of him. So, in theory, you know, if you get Porzingis back next year, you could keep him healthy in the postseason. Certainly, if you can add some front court depth there, maybe you're not asking old man Al to do as much. If I'm him, I'm thinking I'm coming back for one more at least to try to run it back and get another ring. If you're old man Al Horford, Cullen, are you riding off in the sunset, or are you going to pull what I would do and come back and try to get another one?
I think I'm with you, Travis. Right?
Yeah.
Like, look, we talked about the Jays in their prime. This core is not going anywhere, right? This team is primed. You mentioned it being, or the potential of it being, a modern dynasty. I think that's where we could be headed. And for Horford, let's just take a second and just say, like, the guy's waited almost 20 years for this moment. It's truly incredible for Horford to finally get that ring. And you saw him check into the game late and to do kind of basking in the glory of what was happening. It being at home made it so much sweeter.
Oh, yeah.
And also for Horford, you know, that double team drive into the paint, and I think it was the second quarter, or maybe it was early in the third. Like, that's a huge play in a game where things started to get away from the Celtics. Horford just comes in, gets the crowd right into it. And, you know, obviously he's not the player that he was 15 years ago or 10 years ago. But for the Celtics team, that when Porzingis was down, they needed a big body right there under the basket. That's what he provided, and he did that. Obviously, not to the level that Porzingis did when he was 100%, but to a level that allowed the Celtics to keep winning games. And for Horford, if this is it, if he does make the decision to retire, an absolutely great career capped off by the greatest moment, I have to imagine, for him getting that ring. It is a great career for him, being able to accomplish what he's accomplished. The body of work overall with the number of years is really impressive. So if it is the final go around, if this was his final game in the NBA, what a way to do it. What a way to send it off. And as you so aptly put, right into the sunset with that ring for the Celtics.
Absolutely. How do you think this team will be remembered all time? Because I look at all the numbers and the metrics and the analytics, and it's like, really, this is legit one of the most efficient, as far as the numbers go, teams and dominant teams of all time. But I don't really believe anyone will look at them that way. Although I've gone on record as saying I think history will be kind to this championship team. I don't know if we fully appreciate them in the moment because it looks different than what we're used to. We're used to seeing the alpha player put his team on his back, kind of like what Luka did with the Mavs, and win it. This team's a little more kumbaya, you know, all for one for all kind of style. And it works, but it's just not what we're used to seeing in the NBA. So I think they don't get the props maybe they deserve in the moment, at least outside of this town. But I do think as time goes on and you look at these numbers and obviously in basketball and all sports, we appreciate the history of the game. I think that will prop them up a little bit higher. But I'll say this, it also could be we look back on, okay, that was the first of many, right? They went on to win 2 or 3 or 4 more titles. This was the one that got the weight off of their back a little bit, right? So I just wonder, how do you think this team will be remembered all time?
I think it's interesting. I think for me as a younger guy, this is one of the best NBA teams I've seen,
Yeah.
and one of the best Celtics teams that I've seen and that I've followed. So it is kind of interesting the difference between the generations on this one. And I do think that the prime narrative outside of the city of Boston is inevitably going to be that the Celtics had an easy path to get there. It's inevitably going to be the Celtics were facing injured teams. They didn't face the Nuggets, whatever this, whatever that. That's probably what the they hate us because they ain't us narrative is going to be. We saw that with the Patriots. We've seen that with the Red Sox. We've seen that with the Boston Bruins. That's a Boston thing. That's just what the outside perspective is on Boston sports. But you have to remember, Travis, that this banner, this ring, cements the Celtics as the most in the history of the NBA. Right?
That's right.
That it was stagnant for so long with Los Angeles because they won so many in the times that the Celtics just weren't since '08 and since the early mid '90s. So that's something that's going to be etched into the stone of history. And that's a huge part of it. And also the statistical part of things that we've talked about before and that you just mentioned. This team, statistically speaking, is up there. I believe I was reading that it's stats wise top 3, and it's close. Like, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And in this age that we live in, with the media circulation, with people kind of in social media not seeing the bigger picture and focusing on chasing narratives and chasing headlines, the headline is probably going to be that this Celtics team didn't deserve it or they didn't earn it. Maybe something like that. I think we could quash that right here, right now with this conversation, Travis, and say they absolutely did earn it. They absolutely did deserve it. Just because a team is good enough to win as many playoff games as they did in a row doesn't mean that they don't deserve to win a ring or to win a championship. And I think as we go along, and I think you made a great point, as history continues, as seasons happen, as playoff teams, either the Celtics or not the Celtics, do not win all of their series in as dominant fashion as this Celtics team did, history is going to see, wow, what an accomplishment, sweeping the Pacers in the conference finals, coming in and winning the first 3 games, then winning game 5 at home here against Dallas. That's not something you see every day. It's not something you see every year. It may not be something we see for another 5 years in the NBA. That's how special this is. But I do think it'll take some time for the public at large, for the national sports media to see that about this Celtics team.
Yeah, that's well said. No one's going to go through in the history and fine tooth comb and say, well, this player was out during this year. No one's going to look at that. They're just going to look at the numbers and say they mopped everyone in front of them, including the Mavericks in 5. So that's well said. By the way, for more Celtics championship coverage, check out Hold My Banner, hosted by yours truly. Tune in on Nesson's YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow us on all your social media accounts for all of our best content. And also call us, 617-790-0928. We always play your voicemails here on the show. You can email us, thechat@nesson.com. And finally, tweet us, because Cullen, Twitter was jumping championship night round here. Let's get to them, because I loved everything I was seeing on Twitter. I was laughing all night long. How about this Tatum coming out like Lil Yachty, baby? The Celtics are NBA champions. Now, Cullen, listen, you and I both are hip-hop fans. Lil Yachty has no song, no album, no body of work that warrants this type of entrance in any concert. But Jason Tatum does, damn it. Woo!
Oh, absolutely he does. I mean, look, I was looking at the tweets too in the lead up to the finals, in the lead up to this game, and during this game, and all I was seeing was pure elation and pure joy, because that's what this is, and that's what this tweet kind of signifies, is that everyone in and around this area, everyone who's a Celtics fan, has been waiting for this moment for however many years, since '08, and even past that with this Celtics team. So that's why it's so great to be able to see these tweets. It's amazing. And you mentioned Lil Yachty, maybe throw Kendrick Lamar out there, whatever it is. Like, I don't know. I think this Celtics win, and I'm so excited we're going to be looking at some more tweets. This is just some really cool stuff.
Absolutely. Let's keep them going. I mean, the tweets were flying in. So look at Brad Stevens and Thanos.
Now, this one is good.
And all the rings are his players. Celtics, we were inevitable. This is from Hurricane Man.
And I love this one too because it signifies every single piece coagulating to the whole. Because that's, I'm a huge Marvel guy. I'm kind of a nerd in that regard. That's what Thanos was all about. He was all about kind of destroying, but he was bringing all the Infinity Stones together, and that's what Brad Stevens did. That's what he did, and he was inevitable because when he saw the obstacle, when this team saw the obstacle, what did they do? They swept it, they crushed it, they demolished it. And the term that we used, Travis, I think it was 2 months ago, we used sacrificial lambs to talk about the Cavs, to talk about the Heat, and to talk about the Pacers. That's what this is, and that's what this tweet signifies. Is like this Celtics team was always going to get the job done. Always. It was not a question because that's the team that Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla built.
What's a glove called? A gauntlet, right? Am I making that? Am I saying that right? There we go.
The Infinity Gauntlet.
There we go, baby. Look at me.
Oh,
Joe
yeah.
Mazzulla was on that thing too. All right, here it is. Break up Tatum and Brown. And then there's a trophy there. This is from Sam Block. This is when they were youngsters, and now they have gone from boys to men, Cullen.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is what we just talked about with Tatum and Brown. They've grown into this together. They've grown into their roles together. This team is not Tatum's team or Brown's team. It's the Jays team. And that's why you mentioned, it's not a singular face, a singular force vaulting a team over the top. But this makes it double the more special because it's two guys that we've watched grow and develop over the years. And they're not going to be broken up because you mentioned the Tatum contract. We talked about Brown's contract. This pair, this dynamic duo is going to be together for a very, very long time. And things are going to just get even better from here. And seeing this picture of them as youngsters, and now we're going to see pictures of them holding the NBA Finals trophy together and with those rings together next season. It's just going to be so impactful.
Now, one thing that never gets old to me is a crying Jordan meme, and seeing this tweet from Lance, the crying Jordan meme with the Mavs hat on. Oh, this one sent me, Cullen. I love a crying Jordan more than anyone else.
And this one was even better because I saw all the Mavs fan tweets after Game 4 saying, this Celtics team ain't nothing. We're going to come back to their place and we're going to crush them again. It's going to be 30-point deficits all throughout the rest of the finals. And then we see this, and then we see the way this game in Game 5 started. And I didn't see too many Mavs fans tweets after the way that Game 5 started and after Peyton Pritchard absolutely smoked a half-court shot at halftime. The tweets were pretty silent after that one. And let's just take a second about Peyton Pritchard. Oh, my goodness. He loves those half-court shots. What a time to get one here in Game 5 of the Finals.
He earned that ring, brother. Next tweet. How about this? Drew Holiday
oh, my goodness.
Consoling Marcus Smart this. It's Magic and Isaiah making up. This is fantastic work right here. I love Twitter.
Twitter's undefeated. It always is. Whenever it's any big event, Twitter is undefeated. And Marcus Smart, you know what? It had to happen for the Celtics, right? It had to. Without that deal, without Smart leaving the team and what came back, we might not be having this conversation. So obviously, Smart was a fan favorite, but things had to happen for things to work in the Celtics' favor this year.
Man, him and Grant Williams both are just punching the air right about now. And then look, we did hear from the Mavs side of things. Kyrie tweeted and took the high road. Tribe, stay together no matter what. Through the ups and downs, wins and losses, success and failure. Keep your head up high. This mission is bigger than us. I love you all. I appreciate that Kyrie took the high road, but Cullen, I don't know about you. I love traveling the low road, and I just want to say, you sucked in Boston. Hold that L. And the tassels on your shoes are dumb, and the earth is round. Woo!
I think the one thing you can add to this tweet is a dash and then written by ChatGPT after it, because this looks like something I say, type an inspirational message for me on social media so I don't have to think about what just happened 15 minutes ago. That's what I thought when I first saw this. Maybe he's taking the high road. Maybe he's like, hey, I wish I was in Boston. I'm just going to be nice. But that's what it looked like to me. I don't know. I think overall, like I said, 2 12s and a 15 in Boston. That's all you need to know right there about Kyrie.
I mean, listen, if he's smart enough to type in chat GBT for that, then he should be able to research, about the Earth.
What
That's
shape
all
is the Earth?
It just feels like maybe a missed opportunity by him to just do some research. All right, now let's reflect on the season that was. First of all, the haters will say it was an easy path for the Celtics to get Banner 18. I believe 2 things can be true at once, Cullen, and I'm interested to get your thoughts because, yes, it was an easy path. The Heat without Jimmy Butler. The Cavs, Donovan Mitchell gets hurt. The Pacers, Halliburton gets banged up, and they weren't very good anyways. And then, obviously, no one was necessarily hurt for the Mavericks and out, but Luka was dealing with injuries. Kyrie sucks in Boston. Excuse. Listen, yes, it was an easy path, but I would also say it was impressive the way they beat the hell out of all these teams. You can only play who's in front of you, right?
Absolutely. And the key thing about good teams is that they do the job that's in front of them, that they if there is a lesser opponent, quote unquote, they don't let that lesser opponent stun them. They don't let that lesser opponent, kick them in the mouth when they're down, whatever it is. That is what a good team does. And I think, yes, they didn't see the Nuggets. Yes, there wasn't Nikola Jokic in the NBA Finals against Tatum and Brown and Porzingis. Yes, I get that. But the Nuggets still lost. The Nuggets didn't win when they had to win. So they are not, the good team that they were billed to because they didn't get to the finals, right? So I think overall there's a bad faith argument and a good faith argument here about this Celtics path. The bad faith argument is it's the Celtics. They don't deserve it. They didn't earn it, blah, 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 because they're Boston, whatever. The good faith argument is, like you said, there was no Jimmy Butler. Tyrese Halliburton was banged up. All of these things. I do think, though, we are sitting here from the chair of Nesson and on the Boston side of things. But I think it's a fair statement, overarching, all-encompassing, that this Celtics team was great, was historically great, undisputably great. And I think when people start poking holes in that, I have an issue because, stats back it up, the numbers back it up. You watch the team, it backs it up. I don't think there's any way you can dispute that this Celtics team deserved the win, because there's no way for me to dispute that this Celtics team was not phenomenal. They were stellar. They were amazing. And that's what was built. That's what we saw day after day. And I think it's not like this Celtics team just, lazed their way to the playoffs and then won an easy schedule. They had a whole heck of a lot of wins in the regular season, too, and they proved it day after day in the regular season. This team was battle-tested. They were forged in fire. They played through what happened last year and in years past in 2022. I think, yes, the path may have been easier than the paths of old. That doesn't take away from the fact that the Celtics saw that path and stomped all over it. That's what they did, and that makes it really impressive as well for the Celtics team to still be able to see what was in front of them and say, this is not a problem, let me go and finish the job.
Well said. I mean, if you're going 7 games with all these teams missing their star player, that would be one thing. But you're missing your star player and we beat the hell out of you, tells me if your star player played, maybe you get 1 more game, maybe you get 2 more games, but we're still going to win because we're better than you, period. With this ring now, do you look at Brad Stevens and say, hey, listen, maybe this guy is better than Danny Ainge was? Or are you the mindset where I am where, look, Danny Ainge is responsible for that 08 title team. Remember, that same team lost in 2010. So he got to 2 finals, won one of them. And also, his fingerprints are on this current championship team, too. We can't act like Danny Ainge doesn't deserve some credit here as well. So I think Brad Stevens has an opportunity to elevate over him as time goes on. I don't think that's far-fetched, but right now I feel like Danny Ainge is still probably the guy that Brad Stevens is aiming to usurp at some point.
Yeah, when you look at the roster and you look at the players that really, really catapulted this team to success, Danny Ainge was a big part of those players. And that's what it comes down to for me. It doesn't need to be a competition because Stevens comes in and elevates aspects that Ainge didn't elevate in his tenure, right? When Stevens was appointed to his role, the reporting about the differences between the two was that Stevens was a very cerebral mind. He was he wasn't as aggressive, for example, in, going after trades like Ainge was. And to Ainge's credit, that aggression led to some great deals in favor of the Celtics. However, with the way Stevens approaches things, there were a lot of positives there too. The way he managed, another example, Joe Mazzulla, a quick fire, president of operations, maybe sees what happened with Mazzulla and kicks the can on it, right? But Stevens didn't do that, and he trusted Mazzulla, and that trust led to what we're seeing now. The two guys are different. And I think that what Ainge was able to build, and we talk about full body of work a lot on this show, Ainge's body of work is far outweighs Stevens, because Stevens hasn't been in the position for as long as Ainge was. It's just mathematics at that point. So overall, we're not diminishing what Stevens has been able to do here, but as it stands now, give Stevens some time, give him 4 or 5 years, and if he keeps elevating everything the way that he did this past year and in his past couple of seasons in the role, then we'll have a real conversation about it. But overall, we saw the Thanos meme, we saw the tweet about this. Stevens played a big part in this team, and that has to be said. But overall, all-encompassing, I think Ainge is still kind of the top dog in that race.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, let me give you some numbers, and then you know what I'm going to ask you. Here are the best Boston sports championship seasons since 2001. The 4 major Boston sports teams have won 13 titles, including this year's Celtics, obviously.
Yep.
Patriots 6 times, Red Sox 4 times, Celtics now 2, and then the Bruins 1. So out of those 13, Cullen, I mean, where does this one rank? This is deep. I don't know how you can't go 0-4 Red Sox, right? The curse. I almost think you almost had to set them out of it. Like, in my mind, it's like, all right, take them out, and then where does this rank? Because I don't know how in the hell anyone could top that team. But I would say the Celtics team's right up there simply because the expectations, the Eastern Conference Finals, losing to Steph Curry, a great all-time player, wondering, gosh, can Brown and Tatum ever get it done? And then the Ime drama, and then this guy Mazzulla comes in who looks 12 years old, and you're like, what's going on? Look, I have to go 0-4 Red Sox for life, but I do think that this Celtics – now, they were boring in terms of, like, personalities, and obviously we talked about the easy road, but I think all-encompassing, this is a pretty impressive – I would put them high up on the list.
And first things first, just the sheer absurdity of 13 titles since 2001 is amazing. And pushing that aside, you mentioned the 0-4 Red Sox. Historical perspective, I agree. Yeah. I myself was 2 years old at the time. Don't have too much of a recollection of that day. So the stuff that I have is a bit more modern. I have on my list the Patriots against the Atlanta Falcons. I remember watching that game and almost turning it off when the score was 28-3. And I was like, wait, let's keep going and see what Brady can cook up here in the second half. So I have that one up near the top. But I do think this Celtics run is uniquely special just because of the way that everything happened throughout the year. The magic that was this season finally kind of paid off. And we've been following Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for a long time here. Yeah. So that puts it up there for me. And seeing Drew Holiday and Al Horford, really Horford especially kind of get over that hump in his NBA career. So I would put that one behind the Patriots one just because I have such a fond and vivid memory of that Patriots Super Bowl win against the Falcons, and it was really cool just me watching that. I also have on my list the 2011 Bruins win, just because it was the lone Bruins win in this kind of era for Boston sports. Seeing Chara, Bergeron, and Krejci finally hoist the cup. You guys know me. I'm a huge hockey guy, and I think hoisting that Stanley Cup is one of the most incredible things in the entirety of sports. I have that one on my list, and then finally I think the 2018 Sox run was really, really, really cool. Yeah. And the 2013 Sox run is as well. I remember more of 2018 is why I put it up higher. Right. But I think overall, before we get out of here, just this Celtics run, oh my goodness. Just pure elation from us here and from all of the city of Boston. Really, really special stuff. And I cannot wait to see all of the videos and the pictures and the tributes from last night, because everything is going to be really cool to see.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, even just like kind of looking back and reflecting on my favorite moment or something from the season, I had an opportunity to be at game 2 and to be out on Causeway talking to fans before the game and then going in the game and feeling that energy. It's just nothing like it. And it's you and I have talked. I had a chance to cover the Caps and the Nationals championship runs, and being here for the Celtics now, my first soiree into the Boston championships. 13 titles since 2001, man. I'm just happy that both of us are a part of this, and hopefully there's many more. For all of our best content of the day, make sure you follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. For Travis Thomas, Cullen Kapoor, Championship Edition of Boston has entered the chat. That's a wrap till we enter it again and win more titles, baby. Peace.